You all should have gotten one of these cards. If you don't, I have some more to inform you about this initiative. It's called PACI, Polish-American Communications Initiative. One of the things that has always struck me, and one of the reasons I founded the Piast Institute, was the fact that Polonia, even as it grew in size and wealth, had begun to lose influence. At one time or another in the past, it waxed and waned, but we had considerably more public exposure. People asked us their opinion, our opinion, about things that were going on. It really struck me, about 5 years ago, when the scandal around Kwame Kilpatrick began to explode. One of the major stations said, well, we're going to have a conversation with the leaders of the Detroit area communities. And so they had obviously several African Americans, they had some Arab Americans, they had some Hispanic Americans. There were no Poles. There was no Polish leader. There's 500,000 of us in the Detroit area. Why isn't anybody asking us? We've disappeared. Some of it isn't our fault. The way in which the culture has gone, the way in which politics have gone, we're all white people now. We became white somewhere in the 1960s, finally. Between 1930 and 1960, we became white people. Before that, we weren't. But the people who speak for white people don't speak for us. They don't know us. They don't have our interests at heart. So one of the things I decided to do is find some way to get publicity, get us back into the national limelight, to have someone pay attention to our opinions. This time of year, by the way, I'm always very proud to go to the supermarket because, of course, it's Pączki Day. And at Kroger's and a number of other stores, there are these red boxes, you've seen them, in which they spell Pączki correctly. They're not Pączkis or Pączki or whatever. It says Pączki. And they're red and white, and they have a little story on the side. And they're all signed by Herbert Halenko, who was a knight of the Order of St. Stanislaus, and he holds the Order of Merit from the Polish government. And there's a little story about Pączki. And he was the head baker for the Kroger company. I know Herbert. He's dead now. He's been dead for 10 years. But I stayed at his house. I received an award from the Polish community in Cincinnati, and he was the leader. And he insisted, as the head baker, that they do it right. And so to this day, they sign it, and they have all of his titles there. And so I always think of him and I say, thanks a lot, Herbert. You did a good job. People know about us, at least this time of year. So one of the things we tried to do is find ways to create tools to help Polonia get back in the limelight. And one of the things that I've been working on for about 5 years is what we now call the Polish-American Communications Initiative. It's a creation of the Piast Institute. What it is it's a unique tool to build community awareness and to develop a national advocacy capacity for the Polish-American community. And it's based on the electronic communications technology of the 21st century. If we're going to be heard, we've got to be heard through the new media. Social media, the new electronic media. We've got to get on that, on those waves. The PACI platform, this is a website. It was built in cooperation with the Congressional Quarterly. We looked around for a long time, and in fact my model, by the way, is the Arab American Institute. Whatever you want to say about the Arab community in the United States, they know how to do it. And for 15 years I've had contacts with the Arab American Institute, some of my very good friends. They're the ones that sponsored us to become a census information center. And they developed this national platform. It's a little different than the one we have. Ours is more up to date. So we went to Congressional Quarterly. That's the company, it's a private company, but it records everything that happens in Congress. It keeps track of all bills, all committees, all addresses of members of Congress, all communications with the government. And they sell that information. And one of the things they've done is they've built these kinds of platforms for organizations, companies, etc., to keep in touch with their representatives, to lobby for their interests. And so we went to them and asked them if we could get one built. We did get an initial grant from the Consulate General of the Republic of Poland in Chicago to help us get launched on this. And so we, after about 5 or 6 months of work, we launched it this month. This new website allows users to identify an issue and a relevant person, institution or agency, or a newspaper to whom to address some kind of message, to send a correction if they've done something wrong, if they've got something that's not straight, send them a message to thank them for doing a good job, send them a message and ask them to vote and support what we need. And this process is seamless, it's very quick, and it's very efficient. So you go on this website and it appears, it says PACI, and the first thing you see is visa waiver. There's a nice picture, and then here's all the information you need about visa waiver. You need more information, you hit that, it'll expand more information. You go down the page, there's Polish American news, Polish news, latest, we change that all the time. But you say, okay, I want to take action on visa waiver. So you said, take action, you hit the button, and you go right to a page that says, here's who I am. You type in your name, address, and your email, and then you hit the button, and a message box comes up. You type in your message, and you check which person you want, your congressman, your senator. Just hit the button, and it goes right to their office. Congressional Quarterly maintains that up to date. You don't have to find a pencil, you don't have to find a piece of paper, nothing. It goes directly to your congressman because you typed in your zip code, and it immediately puts that person up. You can go back and say, well, I want to know, visa waiver is nice, but I have something to say to the governor, or to my state representative, or to President Obama. There's a page that comes up, you hit his picture, and all the information about how you communicate with that person is right there. Now in this case, we don't necessarily have a box because we don't have an issue, but you can get all that information, you can call immediately. It's all at your fingertips. Now what if PACI decides to give us a message that one of their messages for PACI has a depiction of Poles that's very unflattering, like Mr. Kerfoot did last year about Hamtramck and about Polish people. Polish people are stupid, he said, in this thing. We could put Mr. Kerfoot's name up there in his business. We know his address. And then everybody across the country can send him a message just as easily. You hit that button, there's a message page, and it says, Mr. Kerfoot, you're XXXX. I hope we're not going to be obscene. Polish people are civil, and they're honest people, and so, and it goes right to him. We could send 100,000 messages an hour if we had 100,000 people. So you want to write a letter to the editor of the newspaper. So there's a section that says media. You go to media, and you put your zip code in, and all of the newspapers from this area, from the Ohio border up through St. Clair County, out to Washtenaw County, they all. Okay, which newspaper do you want? You check the newspapers you want. You can do 5 at once. And you send a message, and it goes to the letter to the editor. You've seen it in the Free Press, electronic communication. It goes right to the letter, right to the right address at the newspaper. But you don't want to do it here. Say, well, I heard there's a newspaper down in Amarillo, Texas that has some unflattering stereotypes about Poles, talking about Polish death camps. So you go out, There's a map. You hit Texas, every newspaper of importance in Texas is there. Whole list. You check the ones you want, send a message, and it goes. We can communicate instantly with Congress, with the state legislators, with our elected officials, with companies, corporations, and we can send people positive messages. If somebody proposes a bill that's positive, we can send messages to that person and say, thank you. Now what this means, of course, he understands people are watching him. So he better not say something negative. So we can send positive messages, we can send negative messages. It also allows us to define our issues. What are the issues that are of importance? It allows us to create a national dialogue in our community. And most important of all, it allows us to engage young people. I spent a few days in Washington 2 weeks ago, and it's just amazing. The people who are associated with the Quo Vadis Conference, the people who are established, the Panageia group of young Polish professionals in 7 states and 3 foreign countries, the Polish forums across the country, all of them have pledged their support. I get their emails every day. What more can I do? What more can I do? People are excited by this because we have a tool here. And this one targets directly the people that we want to influence. It doesn't just go out in general. Now, one of the things we've done in the past, and there were good efforts, there are a number of organizations that said, okay, we should have a petition to Congress. And there's an organization in Chicago, not the PNA, not the PAC. There's an organization in Chicago that has a very nice website, and they got to have a petition. And now they have, after 6 months, they have 3,600 signatures on visa waiver. The question is, well, that's a good number. It's not huge, but it's a good number. Who are they going to send it to? If you look at the names, there's somebody from Dublin, Ireland. There's somebody from Chicago. There's somebody from Poland. Who are you going to send it to? We all know how Congress operates, how public representatives operate. They get a list, they get a message, say, is this one of our people? If it isn't, this guy in Dublin, this guy in Warsaw, he's not going to vote for me. Do I have to go through this list to find out there are 10 people from my district that signed it? Nope. Goes in the wastebasket. So sending petitions that are just kind of general to everybody in Congress is interesting, and maybe someone will take notice, well, maybe this is an important issue, but it doesn't get to the people who we want to influence, the people who want our votes. And this initiative is directly focused on that. Now, how do we decide issues? Not me. I'm not going to decide them alone, although I did pick the visa waiver one, which was an obvious one, as our first issue. We could have 5, 6, 10 issues. They don't all have to be national. Could be state. Let's say Illinois says, we have enough of this. We're going to end Pulaski Day. Just stop it. We don't need this anymore. Polish people don't count. Well, we can put up the Illinois legislature. And so you type it in, and the action piece goes to your legislators in Chicago, the people who represent you. Or in Michigan, it would be people who represent Hamtramck and say, don't do this. Vote against it. And so they're hearing directly from the people who are going to vote for them. And so that's the important thing. Now, we at Piast Institute will do all the research, and we'll use Congressional Quarterly and what other information we can get. But we've created a National Advisory Council. We're just now asking people to become members of that. About 40 people around the country. There are a lot of new Polonias that we haven't touched. There's going to be, I think, a very good meeting of, I hope, of Polish Leadership Summit in Pittsburgh in about 2 weeks. 3 weeks. But all of the, if you look at them, they're all from north of the Mason-Dixon line, and they're all from east of Chicago. Atlanta's not there, Houston's not there, San Francisco's not there, Los Angeles is not there, Seattle is not there. And those have vital Polonias. I've been there, I've met with them. In some places like Atlanta or Houston, you don't have much of an old Polonia, but you have a new Polonia. It's well educated, sophisticated, they have money, they're bright people, they want to get involved. And so this will allow those people to get involved directly, even if they don't have ties to Chicago and somebody sends them a letter and say, here's an issue, you better act on it. This, you can do it right away. So this is very important, and we also want to know what those people there in those places think. What do the people in Houston think is important? What do the people in Atlanta think is important? And so we want to get that information. So it's not something I'm going to do. Every 2 weeks, we're going to poll those people and say, okay, what do you need? What are the issues? What are your people talking about? So we want to make this a national effort. This is not just Piast doing something. We're trying to bring the country together. What did we do? We developed the concept. We engaged Congressional Quarterly. We worked with them to develop the platform, to support it. We depend on their resources to keep it all up to date, to keep us properly focused. We have to build the database, and we also maintain it day-to-day, put the new stuff on every week, etc. It's a lot of work. One of the things that happens if you sign up for it, your name goes in the list of advocates, and then we can send you information. We can sort that out by Michigan, by the nation, whatever. Those names are not going anyplace. We cannot use them for anything else. They're not available for our fundraising or anybody else's. And we will, of course, remove anybody's name if they don't want it. Piast will cover all the costs, the indirect costs of housing it. There's no rent. We cover all the cost of telephone, Xeroxing, internet, etc. And we donate part of the labor cost. The rest, we're going to have to develop some resources to fund it. And there's possibility of advertising by Polish organizations and that sort of thing. So this is not something that we're going to make a lot of money about. Well, first thing they ask you in Polonia, who's going to make money on this? Well, we're not going to make any money on it. But this is a tool. We wanted to create a tool. We don't have an agenda. I don't have any particular issues that I want to push and I'm trying to sneak them in, or Piast or anybody else. We want the issues that are important to Polonia. We want a visibility. We want people to say, what does the Polish community think about this? What does Polonia need? And especially in those areas where we have a lot of our people. We have put together, by the way, if anybody's interested, the number of Polish Americans in every single congressional district in America. There are 435 congressional districts. The young people that are doing research for us have isolated the number of Polish people living in every single congressional district. So we have them all available so that we can focus if we need to write to Congress, and I'm writing to every congressman, by the way, to tell them about this, and tell them how many Polish Americans they have, and let them know that we're watching them. And so the whole purpose of this is to create a tool that all Polonia organizations can use. Just Piast alone won't do it. It's not something we created for ourselves. Every organization can use this. One of the reasons we were founded, we're not a membership organization. You can't be a member of Piast. We're a directorship. We have a board of directors. Roman Gribs, by the way, is the chairman of our board of directors, and Monsignor Milewski is the vice chair. And Ron Swankowski, who is the editor of the Free Press, is also a member of our board, and he's a member of the advisory board here. But we don't have membership. We're not trying to get members from anybody else. One of the things we want to do is create a tool that all other Polish organizations can use, one, to help Polonia flourish, and secondly, to accomplish their own missions better. That's all we want to do with this. And it's very important then to spread the word, to get people to sign up. Now, when you send an email to your congressman, it doesn't come from the Piast Institute. It comes from you. Our name doesn't appear. It comes from you. It comes from you as an individual constituent. If you send it to the president or you send it to the state legislator. So our purpose is to help Polonia flourish, help it grow. And we think as it develops and becomes effective, and we have some marvelous support in Chicago, in Washington, in Boston, in New York, in Florida, and here in Michigan among some people. But organizational support on the East Coast is strong. It's also strong in the Midwest. Even the new PAC chapter in Kansas has signed up. It only has one member. But he's a good guy, Walter Bieniecki. So I'm asking you to sign up. That's all you have to do. And immediately send your congressman a message about visa waiver. We are pushing the JOLT Act, which is the act that says Poland and Romania and a couple of other states should be included under visa waiver. The administration, the Obama administration, has it also in the immigration bill. But when we were in Washington a couple of weeks ago, we told the representatives from the administration, this is not an immigration bill. This has nothing to do with immigration. We want it a separate issue. On the other hand, by putting it in the immigration bill, of course, they're looking for support to support the immigration bill. And if that's the only way we can get it, then we will have to get it that way. But right now, it's a separate standalone bill sponsored by Barbara Mikulski and Michael Quigley of Chicago, who represents, Mr. Quigley represents the most Polish district in America, the north side of Chicago. There's not a Pole there. Although he has a wonderful Polish-speaking staff that are really supportive. So I'm asking you to take a look at the poster. Go to your. If we had a screen here, I could probably show you what it looks like. But look at it. Take a look. It's very easy to use, easy to follow, easy to send messages. And first of all, sign up and send a message. And secondly, if you can help us, even small donations, $10, $20, that's fine. If we can build a nice national constituency, then we can support it. And then Polonia can have a voice. And this can expand. We can expand this. We're only at the beginning of the possibilities here, what we can do with this kind of national network. It'll create a forum for people, leaders around the country, to talk to each other via this medium. So take a look at it. Call me if you have any questions. I'll come and talk to you personally. It's the only place you get a personal introduction to PACI is right here in Hamtramck. And let us know. If you would like, I have a little form here that you can sign up. It allows you to give a donation too, but you don't need to, just to sign up. And your name will be on it. We'll send you notices of any alerts, any information. And it's a good way to keep up with what's going on in Poland and in Polonia, because we'll constantly keep articles coming there. So, are there any questions? Yes?
No membership?
No, nothing at all. We want people to become advocates for Polonia. It doesn't cost anything.
The international website?
It's only focused right now on the government of the United States and on United States society. Now we could, some of it, I don't know that if we want to get into the Canadian legislature, but if there's a Canadian company, for example, that we want to target, a Canadian newspaper, a Canadian news organization, a Canadian TV station, we can do that. Or Mexico or any place else. But right now, its focus is on Polonia and the United States. There are 10 million of us, And of that number, probably 3 to 5 million are people, these are all people who say they're Polish on the census. They ask you, because you don't check a box, they don't tell you who you are. In the census, it's a sample. They do it every 3 years around the country, so you may or may not ever get a note from the Census Bureau about this question. But every 3 years they do a sample, well, 1 out of 19 sample around the country. And the census says there are about between 9.5 and 10 million people who say they're Polish Americans. I have all of the data if anybody's ever interested. We keep track of that every year, whatever the data comes out. And there are probably 450,000, about 5% of the people who say they're Polish Americans were born in Poland. So the Polish-born contingent is going down. So if we're going to have a Polish American community, we're going to have to find new ways to tie us together. We've existed for 160 years as a community. So we're not just some remnant of a fading village culture. We're a new people who were created in America. Our ancestors created it. They said, we're here. It's buildings like this that are the stone and mortar root that ties us to the soil of the New World. But they're Polish roots. And so we recreate ourselves. The Polonia in Detroit in 1900 was very different than the Polonia of the 1920s, than the Polonia of the 1940s, than the Polonia of today. We constantly have to reimagine ourselves and rebuild those ties. Communities just don't exist by inertia. They just go on and on. We have to think. We have to contribute to each other in order to make it work.